and welcome to the Manifest to Live Life Goldyn podcast and YouTube show and the Goldyn Hour. I'm Goldyn Nuffy, your host, and I am here today to talk about your mind. We're going to get a hold of the mind today. I haven't done a podcast or a show on the mind in a long time, and I feel like I'm getting so many downloads right now. If you're the type of person who experiences lots of messages at certain times, right now is very ripe and ready for us to receive. The energy right now is very dense. So you might be feeling very heavy. You might be feeling very tired. I am seeing this across the collective. Every single person I talk to is feeling like extreme emotion or just really tired, really feeling like they need more rest. We're coming out of winter. Some people are experiencing still some winter weather. So that's kind of a factor in this where people feel, like they're ready for spring, but spring isn't showing up yet. So that could be a factor as well. But they're also the Schumann resonance, which if you don't know is the Earth's frequency is off the charts right now. And how that affects you if you are not grounded, if you are not doing any kind of earthing, if you're not getting your feet on the ground, or you're not spending any time in nature, that could affect you in ways where you just feel more tired, you feel drained. Excuse me. All you want to do is kind of lay around. And I'm feeling it as well, people. I'm feeling it as well. Or you may be getting, you may have a lot of conflict with people, a lot of confrontations with people, or some old stuff could be coming up, right? You could be experiencing some things that you thought maybe you cleared, and then there's another layer, or there's indication that there's something still going on within. So if you're experiencing any of that, or if you're not experiencing any of that, so one of the reasons that you may be experiencing that is because you're going through an up level. Also with up levels, there's illness. So if you're experiencing the flu or sore throat or a cough or congestion, that could be your body releasing low vibrational things. If you're not feeling that, if you're feeling super high and super happy right now, it just means that you've already acclimated the higher intensity energy. So you've already stepped into this stream of abundance that is available for all of us. But most of us are acclimating. And whenever we're acclimating, we're putting ourselves in a position where we have to deal with some things. We've got to look at some things. We've got to navigate some things in order to expand and grow from the energy that is present currently. Okay, so if you're new to this conversation and you're new to the idea that your mind is separate from yourself, you may need to just listen me out, hear me out for a little bit. Just sit there and just, let these words marinate and start considering them. Because if you've never considered that you are separate from your mind, this may feel like a little bit of an identity crisis. So understanding that your mind is a mechanism and that mechanism is there to keep you safe. It's to keep you the same. It's to keep you from really expanding and growing past the ego. The mind is very ego-centered. So as you evolve in your spiritual growth here, in your human development here, we're always on this spiritual human path in navigating both of those things. And if you're completely ignoring your spiritual path, if you're just in the logic of being a human, you are missing out on quite a bit. You're missing out on the functionality of being a spiritual being in this human condition. You're missing out on that. And what that does for you, how the spirituality and the humanness balance each other, allows us to live in faith, to live in trust, to activate our manifestation powers from a more powerful place, because we're not just in the density and the logic of the human mind. We're in that flow, the flow of the expression of our true selves. And that's when things start to uncover for us. That's when we start to discover that, oh, hey, I'm not my traumas. I'm not my wounds. I'm not what I've identified myself to be so far. I can actually recreate that. I can become someone much more. Life can call through me. I can take chances. I can take risks, and I'm always going to be loved and supported. And the universe is always going to orchestrate in my favor. That's the spiritual piece of this. So if you're just living in the logic of the mind, you will look at reality and you will say, this is the way it is. This is the way it looks like it's going. So that's the way it's going to be. And you won't allow the openness of your energetic field to create different opportunities for you. This creates a lot of stuckness. This creates a lot of cycles in your life that doesn't allow you to reach beyond the human condition of what you've experienced up until now. We want to know about our spirituality, and we don't want to know about our spirituality. This is where the mind gets in there. This is where the mind confuses things. This is where the mind creates all sorts of issues for us. Is the mind makes us think that we aren't spiritually connected, that we have a lot of spiritual work to do, and it keeps us in this function, this defunct, right? Like this defunct position of we're not good enough, we're not worthy, we haven't figured it out yet, we still have a lot of growing to do. That keeps us really from growing, because it keeps us in a low vibration and a low view of ourselves. How are you viewing yourself? Do you see yourself as someone not who has it all figured out? It's not about that. Not somebody who's perfect all the time, who's got all the boxes checked off, right? Like, I'm working out, I'm eating healthy, I'm being nice to people, my relationships are great. It's not about that. It's more about how we feel internally and in the grand scheme of being alone. How do we feel when we are by ourselves? Do we feel filled up? Do we feel love? Do we feel centered and grounded? Or do we feel lonely and sad and miserable and like something is missing? That's a call to your spirituality. If you feel lonely, if you feel miserable, if you feel like there's something missing, if you're in grief a lot, that's a call from your spiritual center to say, hey, maybe let's balance this life out a little bit, and let's come into a new belief system. Let's activate new energy in this human time, and let's do this together. Let's become whole. So many people walk around fragmented because they don't have this piece in place, or they have this spiritual piece dialed in, right? They've had all these awakenings, and maybe they've done a lot of plant medicine. I don't know, whatever makes people come into that spiritual awakening. A lot of times it comes on the heels of a depression, or they call it the dark night of the soul. Or they came into this life experience already super spiritual, already, with that imbalance. I know, I want to say it was Ram Dass, or maybe it was Wayne Dyer, that talks about the dial and how we have this dial between our spiritual and our ego center. And some people come in and their ego's dialed way up, and other people come in and their spirituality's dialed way up. So then the ego will be lower, or the spirituality will be lower. And then the expansion and growth comes as we even out that dial, as we balance our dial, right? Now, how do we balance the dial? Well, one of the biggest things in balancing the dial is to overcome this idea of the mind, that small mind, that little self, that self that tells us we can't do things, that self that tells us not to work out, that self that tells us not to meditate, that self that tells us we're not good enough, we don't know enough, we have to keep working on ourselves. It's dialing that voice down. I've called it the shitty committee many times. It's dialing down the power of the mind has over us to keep us the same, to keep us dissatisfied, to keep us in elements of this life that don't allow the euphoria, that don't allow the abundance, that don't allow you to step into your gifts and talents, or to follow your dreams, to sell everything you own and move to a new place, or all the different ways that we can do things to show ourselves how powerful we are. That's one of the big ones, to show yourself how powerful you are. I think it's episode 11 from season 1 where I share what we did and how we manifested moving across the country with no house, no job, just selling everything we own and doing something so crazy. And that we are coming up on our 10-year anniversary here in California. And we both feel like it was the best decision that we ever made. All of us, actually, our daughters as well feel that way. And we're super duper grateful to be here. And the growth and the expansion that came with that was not easy. It was not, it was one of the hardest things we ever did, but it was incredibly worth it now that we're on the other side. And now it's looking at your life after you do things like that, or if you haven't done them yet, it's looking at your life and saying, where is my growing edge? Am I just living in this human experience and getting by, maybe just kind of waiting around for things to change or waiting around to die? Or am I not necessarily pushing yourself? I want to say pushing yourself, because there is a little push that needs to happen in the activation of the energy field. Action needs to happen. There's a balance between the masculine and the feminine. The masculine is your action piece. The feminine is your nurturing piece. But if you're all nurturing all the time and there's no action, you're not activating the balance of those energy fields. So it's putting that together and recognizing when you need rest, recognizing when you need to meditate, recognizing when you're in a state of needing to get out there and doing something to activate the energy field, because you've been living in this kind of like, I'm flat and okay, right? That okay flatness, that meh of life is not a big activator. No, it will actually turn at some point, it will turn to frustration for you, because we are growing and expanding beings. Our natural state is of well-being. So if we're just living in a kind of a flat state of being, there's always going to be this call. There's going to be this call to do more, unless you are suppressing it with alcohol or addiction or all the different ways that we distract ourselves, right? In this human condition, we distract ourselves from being spiritual. We distract ourselves from healing. We distract ourselves from a whole different thing, a whole bunch of things. So let's not do that. Let's stop distracting ourselves. Let's get real. Let's get honest, and let's look at your mind. So if you have a tendency, and I'm speaking very much from my own experience when I share these things, if you have a tendency to look at things, look what could possibly go wrong, or try to prepare for that, prepare for what's going wrong, or if you can notice, the biggest thing with this is noticing, right? Like noticing where your thoughts are going. First thing in the morning is often the easiest time to notice where your thoughts are heading. And if you have neural pathways, right? We have all these neural pathways in our brain that are like well-worn paths. If you have a tendency to go towards complaining, being dissatisfied, thoughts about what's wrong, overwhelming thoughts about the to-do list of your day, if you have a tendency to do that, you are going to be in the lower self. You're going to be in the lower frame of mind that doesn't allow for opportunities, ideas, orchestrations, new ways of doing things, right? Like opening your field to new ways of doing things. And what blocks the field from new ways of doing things is that constant neural loop, or just really focusing your attention on what you don't think is going well in your life, right? Like focusing on that one problem or those few problems instead of focusing on the 10 things that are going right or all the things that you have that are going for you. We always have things going for us, but because they're quiet and maybe have kind of always been that way, it's less easy to appreciate and to recognize them. But if we can appreciate and recognize them, we're going to make them bigger. We're going to make the things that are going well bigger. So when it comes to your mind, as you activate those neural pathways, luckily, every thought doesn't manifest, so that's a really good thing. But what happens is you evoke emotions, and emotions aren't even necessarily emotions are energy in motion, but it's more about, in the quantum field, it's more about your behavior. It's more about your behavior. It's what those emotions cause you to do that actually activates the energy in the universe. So that means that you could have an emotion and not act on it, right? We've talked about emotions being addictive. So you are, right now at this point in your life, you are looking to, or you are working on getting rid of the addiction to the emotions. So you may have emotions come up and you can deal with them in a way where they don't actually manifest. So let's say this actually happened to me the other day, and man, was it a learning lesson. I have a daughter who has some issues with one of the neighbors, and they had a confrontation the other day. And she was really angry. And I noticed recently that she has been pretty angry. And there's been some changes and there's been some challenges for her that I think have created the kind of this spark. And of course, it's an invitation to heal. And so she came in the house and she was really angry, and she was, saying terrible things about this neighbor. And I don't care for this neighbor. I don't think that they're actually good people. And so there's my behavior, right? How I'm behaving towards them is like, but I don't necessarily pay attention to them as far as like giving my power away. Whenever you allow someone to make you angry or frustrated or beyond logic, right? Your emotions are high, so your logic is lost. So you're saying things, you're doing things, you're activating a lot of negative emotion in your life. You are actually giving your power to that person. So if they're bullying you, you are allowing them to be bigger bullies. The greatest thing you can do is not pay attention to them, not let them affect your field. And this is mastery. This is not like something you're going to like decide and do tomorrow, right? Like we're all in the process of figuring this out. So she comes in, she tells me, and I've been concerned about her anger lately. I've been concerned. I know that when we tune into an angry vibration, that more things like it are going to join it. And eventually you're going to be creating a lot of chaos in your life. So I've been concerned about that. And I've been sending her things to listen to, and I've been sending her energy that is of concern about this anger. So as she approaches me, I'm also very concerned with keeping the peace in our neighborhood because we live there. We have to pass these people, a few times a day. We're in the vicinity. Drama. I'm just not about the drama. So I instantly get triggered by her anger. So now I'm angry, right? I'm yelling and not listening to her and kind of accusing her of doing the wrong thing. And so whenever this happens, we say it's not a teaching moment. So here we are stuck in this quarrel, stuck in this energy of like coming at each other and not really hearing what the other person has to say and not really making a difference. And so we go our separate ways. It lasted, maybe 2 minutes, and we go our separate ways. And then after I got away from it, I thought about it and I thought it was so funny, like so ironic, right? I didn't carry the anger with me. I wasn't like for a few, probably like 10, 15 minutes, I was processing it. So I was feeling some negative emotion, concern still, and feeling like this wasn't what I wanted. So then I started really to think about it and to process it. And I thought, God, that's really funny how I was angry at her for being angry. Like it's so like I haven't really given her the space to have her emotional field. I just instantly get concerned or upset when she's angry. And I was like, that is so silly because I'm like basically doing the same thing she's doing, but I'm telling her it's wrong, right? So where's my stuff in this? That's what I do all the time. So when it comes to my behavior in that moment, I went and got triggered, and I didn't come from the love of who I am. I didn't see her for the love of who she is. I didn't have any compassion for her. It seemed, and I didn't do this, it wasn't my intention, but it seemed like I was taking the side of this man who has no business even talking to my child, honestly. And so, wow, what a lesson there. So looking at those little confrontations and going, all right, where's my stuff in this? What do I need to heal? Why does this trigger me so much? Why am I so concerned about anger? Why am I so concerned about one of my children having negative emotions? We're all, I would think all of us as parents, we just want our kids to be happy. We want them to be balanced. We want them to be living a productive life. We don't want them fighting with our neighbors, the whole thing. We don't want trouble stirred up. So I got to the bottom of what that was all about. And then just really processing, law of attraction and frequency and where I am on the frequency. Because if there's an angry person in your life, then there is somewhere in that frequency that you are as well. So really looking at that. And I can say there's been some changes in our lives. There's a lot of I don't want to say stress, but there's like an up level of energy and things that we're being called to and things that we're doing to scale that cause that stress, right? Like it's like the pearl that's made in the clamshell, like it's under stress, or the diamonds that are made. It's stress that creates these beautiful things. So as much as I don't want to like label it as stress, that's what it is. It's putting yourself up to new standards, right? Where you have to raise the bar on the way you're thinking and the way you're being and the what you're doing. So that's where we're at. And if you are in this flux, if you are in this transition of change, that stress can cause you to be very triggered, to live in a triggered state. One of the reasons you don't want to live in this triggered state is because you will experience and attract more things like it. So the more you ignore those emotions and let your emotions kind of run wild, the more your behavior is going to be at that lower vibrational level that's going to attract lower vibrational things and people and chaos and experiences that you really don't want to create from. It's very challenging when you get yourself in positions of creating a lot of chaos and a lot of cycles of chaos. And one of my daughter's defenses that I've really had to think about, because I do think that there is, with this generation in particular, and I'm seeing it more so with girls than boys, is they believe that finding their voice is about fighting. It's about rage. There's this whole thing about feminine rage, and I think that it really is. I understand, because I think it's also believing in the suppression of women and the feminine power, which I don't really believe in. I believe the imbalance between masculine and feminine was so that we can get rebalanced. It's just like when you feel powerlessness in your life, when you experience something in powerlessness, it allows you to know your power. It's like when it's raining out, the sunshine the next day makes you more appreciative of the sun. It's that contrast, it's that challenge that causes us to expand and grow, right? That's what causes energy to move. So I don't necessarily believe that the rage is the best way. In fact, I said to her, the best way to bully a bully is to pay no attention to them. Because if you're not paying attention to them, they have no control over you, and it completely can diffuse the situation. It really can, if you cannot get triggered, if you can remember that. As far as like negative emotion and is there a place for it in our lives, I do believe there's action and anger. I do believe things get done when we get like sick and tired and we get more determined. I do believe that there's action in that. In fact, when we first moved here, I had a couple of friends here, like 3 friends here, and one of them had connected me with a real estate agent, and I really wanted to find a place before we moved here. We were moving from Connecticut to California, and I really wanted to have a landing pad, right? Not to feel like we're getting there and then we have to find a home. That felt like so ungrounding for me. I'm a homemaker. I love to have a home. Like it just felt really off to go somewhere where you're landing in a place and you don't have a place to necessarily put your head that's not like a hotel. So she had put me in touch with this realtor, and he was really, really nice at first, and he was really friendly and really funny, and he made me feel supported. And maybe that was the whole reason for this whole experience. But what ended up happening is we went to his office when we first got here, and he took a look at our situation, which was grim, by the way. We had incredibly low credit scores. We were told that there was a lot of competition in the rental market, so it was really hard to even find a place. And if you had low credit scores, that was definitely going to be an issue. But I had a friend who was somewhat psychic, and she told me that our credit scores weren't going to matter. So I had that little seed planted that our credit scores were not going to matter. And that really helped me. That was like the mustard seed, right? That created the faith, that created that scenario of our credit scores not mattering, which they did not matter. In the end, we ended up having to pay $400 extra because our credit scores were low. So she was right. It was no big deal. He, on the other hand, felt like it was a big deal. There were a couple things in our past financial condition that he thought were big concerns. And I remember very distinctly sitting in his office, and he put another realtor on speaker. And it was for this place that was really kind of gross, very dated. I didn't want it. I was like, I didn't move to California to live in something that feels yucky. And he was basically trying to get this woman to rent this property to us that we didn't even want by making us out to seem like we were some sort of charity case. And I got really angry. I got really upset, right? This is where there's action and anger. And we basically walked out of his office and said, we're going to figure this out. This situation that we're in does not define us. It is not who we are. We are not your charity case. And we stormed out of there. And within a day or two, we found our beautiful apartment that we ended up moving into. The point of that story is that sometimes the anger, the action that comes in anger. Now, we didn't say anything awful to this man. We didn't freak out on him. He obviously didn't know. This is the bottom line. He didn't know who we were. He didn't know how we create. And when you have an attitude like that, when you have a behavior like that, then you are a powerful creator. So we walked out of there feeling very determined. And that's the beautiful thing about anger, is it can create a very strong foundation of determination, right? When you do something because somebody says you can't do it. That's the energy I'm talking about. When you are in anger and you're very high in your emotional field of anger, your logic is lost. You're saying things that you wouldn't normally say. You're in rage. When you're in rage, you have no control over what's happening. It's like you're spouting from wounds. You're in the vibration of a wound, and that vibration of a wound is going to create a bigger wave of a wound. And that's what we want to get out of. We want to get out of that tendency to have our emotional field so out of control, because our mind is out of control, right? Our mind is the one that's creating the initiation between our mind and our emotional field. So we want to get control of the mind so it's not flipping the switches on these out of control emotions. But we also want to go within and heal. We want to go within when we feel a triggered emotion. We want to ask ourselves, what is this? Where is my stuff in this? Why do I feel this way? Where does this come from? How do I process it? How do I release it? If it's something that's not optimal, how do I release it and step into a new place, step into new growth, step into a new identity? Those are all really, really good questions to journal and ask yourself. But the first step is definitely the mind. Now, I have a new M21 Revolution Challenge on Facebook happening right now. We are 4 days into this one. We ran the challenge again because it was so successful last time and we loved it so much. I loved it so much. You get a guided meditation every day. You get 2 different posts to contemplate, some questions to contemplate, and it's a great way. It's a great navigation tool to getting a handle on your mind. And the people that are in this group are phenomenal, and they have all been experiencing a lot of growth and a lot of connection to high vibrational energy. The meditation we did today was about guided meditation on getting into the higher frequency. It's a guided meditation that I've done. I think you can find it on my YouTube channel, called Guided Meditation for Higher Frequency, or jump into the M21 Revolution group. Just ask to join and we'll let you in there and you can find it in there. It was channeled because as I was listening to it, and it's so interesting to meditate to your own voice. I really got deep because there's no break in what I'm saying. Like, it's just this channeled stream of consciousness that came through in that meditation to raise your vibration. When you raise your vibration, when you meditate, when you let go of the vibration that you normally have going on, especially if it's a lower one, one where you're just feeling mad all the time, or you're feeling frustrated or aggravated, when you let go of that, you then can raise your vibration to the point of your well-being, and then you can do things to get even higher than that, to step into higher states of consciousness where you are attracting from the love, the joy, the happiness, the the overall feeling of satisfaction. Whenever you are in an overall feeling of satisfaction, you are not listening to the mind. So if you can imagine that you've got this mind that, right now feels like this, it feels like the mind is who I am. Every thought I have is who I am, right? That's why we get into these traps of like beating ourselves up and putting ourselves down and feeling bad about ourselves, because the mind is so close to us that we feel like it's real. We believe it. We think it's us, and it's not. So we have to create that space, which we do through meditation, awareness, and understanding this information and stepping away from these doubts and things that come up to find a new place, to find a new identity, to uncover, right? Uncover, bring up the truth of who you are. And you do that by quieting the mind. That's one of the best ways. And also, just the process of being curious about yourself, being curious about who you really are, and stepping out of this confusion. It's really easy to let your field get super confused because of all the information out there. And because of the nature of your being to constantly be growing, we're always acclimating. So the law of perpetual transmutation of energy says we're always moving and we're always growing. So because we're always moving and we're always growing, we have to catch up with it. And the way that we catch up with it, right? Like this wave. So once we have this thought in our mind, right? And that thought starts to activate energy, it starts to activate emotion. And then we start to act from that emotion. This wave starts to break down and become particles and become matter. If at any point in that process, we decide for ourselves, whether it's through the thoughts, right? Blessing it, letting it go, shifting, thinking about something else. Once we get to the emotion, right? Now we've got an emotion, and depending on how high that emotion is, logic could be completely lost. We might not have control over what we do next, and that's what we want to figure out. Then once we get into the behavior piece of this, once you start behaving a certain way, so you start acting ticked off, you start doing things that are, fueled by anger, or you start saying things that are fueled by anger. Once you get to that point, it is very, very challenging to stop that train from rolling. Really, really hard to jump off that train, unless you are so super aware that you make a break and you go for a walk, or you sit down and meditate, or you take a nap. You shut down the conversation. I need to process right now. I think way too many times we're trying to work on things before each person has processed enough to be able to talk maturely, talk within the control of the emotional field, talk about how we actually feel. There's so often that we're in these conversations and we're blaming people for the way we feel instead of actually owning the way we feel and understanding that it comes from within, and that whatever they're doing is not personal, but if it's activating something in us, then it is, right? Then we have to get to the bottom of what that is and why we may feel that way. So it's super important to, very first thing, get control of this mind, because the mind is what activates the rest of the process. And if once you get to the point where you've got enough awareness, you can look at things so much more objectively and ask yourself, do I want more of this? So if you've got an addiction to an emotion and you're noticing, wow, like this situation is activating this feeling of abandonment in me. Do I want to continue this cycle of abandonment, or do I want to clear it up? That's a really good question. And you may get the answer like, I want to feel abandoned right now because that's exactly how I feel, and I just need to honor that feeling. And I would take that into meditation. I would take that into your journaling questions. Why do I feel this way? What's the root cause of it? And where am I going from here? I think and where do I want to go from here? It's such an important question, because otherwise we're just recycling, right? We're gurgitating. Oh, wow, there goes my light. Hang on a second. We're regurgitating information, right? We're regurgitating energy in our life that doesn't serve us, that we're not really interested in creating from anymore. We want to get out of those cycles, right? Don't you want to get out of those cycles? Don't you want to feel calm and at peace and grateful and look around you and see the beauty in life and feel excited for what comes next and feel excited for what you're creating next? Don't you want to stop waiting and wishing and hoping and instead start creating? I know I do. I know I do. So the only way we're going to do that is by becoming more aware, becoming more centered on our growth, becoming more grounded in the human and the spiritual connection. What is this trying to show me? What is coming through me? What is life attempting to invite me to see or invite me to heal? Those are great questions to ask, because then you're going to get the answers to so many things that have caused you to have your behavior be out of control, right? I mean, behavior could be considered the same thing as attitude, right? Like your behavior, your attitude, it's basically the state of being that you're in how you're feeling for the most part, right? How you're feeling at any given moment for the most part. So it's like your dominant state of being. If your dominant state of being is peace, that when things happen, they won't throw you off as much. If your dominant state of being is frustration, irritation, and anger, it's going to be so easy for you to experience more of that. So we got to get a handle on that foundation. If you're in a place in your life where you're not really sure about spirituality and you're not really sure about the faith-based part of this, and you're like, okay, I'm just into the science. I'm just into manifesting. I want stuff. I just want to create stuff in this life. That's been there. I've done that. I get it. Then I would challenge you to start meditating. That's all I would do, is just challenge you to sit down, join my M21 Revolution group, sit down every day and spend a little time in quiet. 10, 20 minutes, maybe do a little journaling. Just start to foster a relationship with yourself, because the stronger the relationship you have with yourself, the stronger your spiritual connection is going to be. The stronger your relationship is with yourself, the stronger your conduction of the power you have to create will be. Because what you're doing is you're saying to the universe, I am super important. What I want is super important. Who I am is super important. The behavior I display is super important, right? Put more importance on your value, and how you value yourself, and your manifestation powers will exponentially grow. They will grow beyond anything you've experienced before, because now you're not just outputting, right? You're not just creating by default. You're not just being like a puppet on a string with your emotions. You're actually putting yourself in a place where you can have awareness, downloads. You can create differently. You can respond differently. It's changing the cycle of who you used to be before you realized that you were this multifaceted being, right? Multi-dimensional, multifaceted being. Okay, so when it comes to the mind, keep in mind that there is a mechanism there that's going to work from dissatisfaction. So as you get out of bed in the morning, see what your tendencies are, and then walk throughout the day with this hyper awareness on what your tendencies are. So as you meet people and talk to people, what is your tendency? Is it to dominate the conversation? Is it to let other people dominate the conversation? Is it to be the yes girl, yes guy? You're always saying yes when you want to say no. Do you get like socially awkward? Social awkwardness is not being fully grounded in who you are. It's a complete disconnect from your spiritual center when you are faced with other people. And the way to get over that is to foster a better relationship with yourself, because the more you know who you are, the more grounded you are in the wholeness of who you are, the easier it's going to be human, because then you're walking around with confidence. You're walking around knowing who you are. You will get more downloads for conversation. You will be funnier. You will be more lighthearted. You will have less self-judgment and less self-criticalness about yourself. So fostering that relationship is the best way to uncover these habits of the mind that have kept you in cycles of being less than. So that's the very first thing. Meditate. It's the best way to foster a relationship with yourself. Journaling, great way to foster a relationship with yourself. Asking. Have you ever asked yourself anything, or are you always asking everybody else? Are you always asking the peanut gallery, or do you actually care about what you think? The most indecisive people that I've ever worked for are the ones who have never realized, recognized, or drawn from the relationship that they have to their own guidance. They don't even know they have their own guidance because they've never trusted it. They've never fostered a relationship with it. So fostering a relationship with yourself is one of the most important relationships, if not the most important relationship you can possibly create from, because it's going to uncover so much for you and it's going to help you to heal. You know, you can't think about it. When you're in a relationship with somebody, if you don't pay any attention to them, how good is your relationship? How would you even know what they were experiencing if you don't pay any attention to them? If they were to start talking and you were just to be like, blah, 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 do you do that to yourself? Right? Do you ever compliment yourself? Do you ever feel good about yourself? Do you ever recognize that you are a human being here in this beautiful experience and that you can actually be spiritual as well? Good questions. So even though that your mind is very powerful, it is not more powerful than your spiritual sense of self. So I'm going to do a little Russian roulette today. Let's talk about my books for a second. So I always love to share the QR codes. If you're not watching this, if you're listening to the podcast, hop over to YouTube. You can see it on YouTube or E360 TV. Because the QR codes are the best way to find this. So there's a couple of things you can do. One is to support the show. Little QR code there to support the show. This is buy me a cup of coffee. It's a $5, $10, $20, whatever the donation is that you would like to exchange energy for listening to the show, for benefiting from the show. That is a way to do it. So the QR code is up there on the screen for that. I have my journal available, which is actually 100 pages of content. It's a daily guide, so it's the best way to get into a higher vibrational state with lots of journaling pages, writing prompts. This is an incredible tool for spiritual and human evolution, and it's hardcover, and it's a beautiful book. Makes a great gift as well. All right, so we're going to do a little Russian roulette. The journal QR code is right there. And then we're going to go to Unfolding Soul. So this is the perfect unfolding for the expansion of your soul. This is the spiritual part of manifesting, and we're going to do a little Russian roulette. I love to just pop these books open to see what they say. Okay. This is all about the turkey vulture. And this is the turkey vulture spirit animal. With her ability to smell the wind, helps you to sort through your thoughts. Air is symbolic of the mind. Isn't this amazing? I love Russian roulette. Your thoughts can be confusing whirlwinds at times. I could not have clicked on a better thing. It can be hard to tell if your mind is making something up or if it is true intuition. Turkey vulture rides the currents of the mind and helps you to connect to the ground of knowing, which is that spiritual center that we've been talking about. Summer is the season of turkey vulture. She rides with wings extended in a V shape on thermals of hot air. Hot air rises off the sun-soaked earth in a spiral pattern, and the turkey vulture is an expert at catching a ride on this invisible elevator. She circles upwards, teetering and relaxed. She rarely flaps her wings, but stays aloft for hours. Her migration between North and South America is spent casually riding these warm breezes. The turkey vulture reminds you to ride the warm currents of warmth in your own life. Allow yourself to benefit from what life has to offer and let go of the need to work so hard. Let life bring you warmth and sustenance. The currents will carry you where you need to go. exercise a little patience, and relax a little bit. Wow. That's pretty freaking amazing. So imagine that. Like, think about that. Think about the turkey vulture and how that hot air is your thoughts, and how to rise above those thoughts so that you can get into the spiritual connection of grounding for what really needs to be paid attention to, what really needs to be focused on. That was incredible. Okay. We're going to do mindful manifestation secrets, because this is the science of creating, the science of manifesting. And I will pop the QR code up. These are all available on Amazon. Some are easy to find if you look up my name, and some are harder. The journal is probably the most difficult to find. So that's why you need the QR code for that one. All right, so we're going to do a little Russian roulette with mindful manifestation secrets. Okay, so let me do this one more time, because that wasn't right, because I wasn't focused. Let me just focus. Okay. Mindful and aware. I knew it. I just knew it. Now your job is to become super aware and interrupt the thought patterns that bring you back to a low level vibration. The best way to do this is to become mindful and present in your everyday life. Becoming present means you are bringing your entire self to experiences and no longer having the negative commentary that has accompanied your activities up until now. By clearing your mind and staying present, you will deactivate the thought patterns that have been creating in your experience. You will pull your attention away from those things that you no longer wish to create. It is important to explain momentum. Understand that you have been thinking the same thoughts day in and day out for as long as you have been alive. Your life experience has caused you to make certain judgments, perceptions that have created the life that you are now living. It is possible to bring forth big changes fast, but it is also important to recognize that creating a new momentum is going to take focus and work. Not work meaning hard work that you have to punch a time clock for, but instead mental work that you're going to need to strengthen over time. As you practice quieting your mind and focusing on what is right in front of you, you will get better and better at doing it. The mind is a very busy bee that will keep dragging you back time and time again. So be aware and also very forgiving of yourself each time you catch yourself in the craziness of mind banter. I have spoken with many people who tell me it is not possible for them to quiet their mind, or that they cannot meditate because their mind is too busy. This is a belief system that will kill your practice. We all have the ability to come back to zero state awareness. It is who we are, and it is what we are infinitely connected to. Release any of that BS your mind is telling you, and recognize that in order to get good at something, you must first be bad at it. In order to get really good at something, you have to give it time and attention and lots of practice. It also refers us to episode 58 of season 1 of the podcast, is that silencing the shitty committee. So if you want to listen to more about the mind and really getting a hold of the mind, that's a great other podcast episode to get with. So Russian roulette, these books, open them up every day. Just pick, ask the universe for a message. That's what I do every day. If you follow me on Facebook or on Instagram's Manifest to Live Life Goldyn, and Facebook is Goldyn Duffy. Every day I just open up and I'm like, what do you have for me today? So you can do that as well in your own life, to download information. And you may find at times you download information while you're in the shower. And one of the reasons is because the water is very calming and it actually quiets the mind. So when your mind is at its quietest, that's when you're going to get your most intuitions. You're going to get the most ideas. Because think about it this way. If your mind is spiraled, right? Like that hot air, right? If it's just spiral, there's no room for any new ideas. There's no room for any new epiphanies or suggestions, because there's no space for it. So what we're doing in meditation and zero state awareness is we are creating space. We are just like the turkey vulture, and we are rising above that hot air, which is all of that, chaos and all of that information that keeps us the same, that keeps us dissatisfied, that keeps us in these cycles. So what we want to do is rise above that. So I'm going to do a little exercise right now where you can quiet the mind and you can de-identify with the mind. That's our intention right now in this little quieting your mind exercise. So this will just take a few minutes. Close your eyes. If you're not driving, if you're driving, save this one for later. Close your eyes. And just take a deep breath. And when you take a deep breath, just set the intention to go still. So breathing in, we just breathe in stillness. We breathe in quiet. We breathe in space. And just feel this space. So as you close your eyes, there's a space. And as you listen to my voice and allow my voice to guide you, there is a space that is moving away from the monkey mind, moving away from the banter, moving away from the normal everyday, got to do this, got to do that. So we're just creating space. And in this space, we set intention. And our intention for this space is to create some room to heal, room to grow, room to evolve, room to recognize and realize the patterns that no longer serve us. And as we breathe out tension, we breathe out stress, we breathe out the need to constantly be doing something. And we allow ourselves to come into this moment right here together, right now, where we see. You can see from that bird's eye view, imagining we're the turkey vulture or the hawk flying above life, allowing us to see from a better perspective. And in this intention, we'd like to de-identify from those old patterns, those old thoughts, those old tendencies. And we want to step into and rise above into something new, where we get to be the creator. We get to be more powerful. We get to be more deliberate. And we get to set intentions for our well-being, for our sustenance, for our connection, for our relationship with ourselves. And just feel how good that feels. You may feel some energy in your heart. I feel the heart is just opening up, being open to receive. We can set that intention. I am open to receive new answers. I am open to receive new awarenesses. I am open to receive new information that allows me to step into who I truly am. I intend to assimilate. I intend to up-level. I intend to be new, and I intend to share the balance of my human and spiritual evolution with all those I come in contact with, all those who are ready to come in contact with the information that changes lives. And if you want to continue this, turn it off, put your timer on for 10 or 15 or 20 minutes and let yourself really be in the silence. This is a great way to marinate and to get your energy field ready for quiet. You can also hop over to M21 Revolution on Facebook. There's lots of guidance there. There's videos, there's so many things. And that group is a plethora of information just to help you to understand that mind training is where you're going to become your most powerful creator, and quieting the mind, getting in zero state awareness is your best potential to become who you truly are and to leave the wounds behind, to leave the regrets behind, to leave that committee behind that tells you that you're not good enough and you don't have it figured out and you got to keep working on yourself. This is about satisfaction, gratitude, living a life that is more than you ever imagined, living a life that supports the orchestration of everything you've been asking for. If you've been asking and waiting and wishing and hoping, those are all, you're flatlining the energy field. You've got to get excited. You've got to set intentions. You've got to be determined. You've got to have you've got to have that action piece in place where you're doing it from a very intentional energy field, where you believe it's possible, where your behavior exhibits the behavior of the identity who is living that reality. All right, you guys, that's my show for today. Peace out.